Hello and welcome to The Story Behind the Story, where romance readers and authors connect. I'm Reese Ryan, author of sexy emotional romantic fiction featuring lots of family drama, surprising secrets, and a cast of complicated, sometimes messy characters. Thank you so much for joining me today here on the show. If you are new to the show, by all means, I invite you, if you enjoy reader-centered author discussions, to subscribe by hitting the button below and hit the little notification bell so you'll always be notified when new content has come up on the show. And today we are going to be discussing small town romance. So any romance reader, even if they don't personally read it, definitely knows and understands how big small town romance is in the romance genre. And so today we're going to be talking about small town romance because sometimes it can seem like small town romance is rather homogenous. It seems like it's mostly written by white authors about white characters. And so, but the truth is there are tons of people of color out there, authors out there writing small town romance. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about, diversity and small town romance. And we're going to talk about reader expectations for small town romance. And we're going to do that with one of my favorite small town romance writers of color, and that is author Kathy Douglas. If you have not met her, she's the sweetest. So thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us.
Hi, Reese. Thanks for having me. And thank you to all your guests who are watching. I know Reese has thousands and thousands of people watching. So hello, cast of thousands.
So, thank you so much for joining us, Kathy. And if I am kind of lazy and I do not like to read canned bios. Plus, I like for you to be able to tell, readers who you are. So if you could tell us a little bit about what you write and your journey from a lawyer to a romance writer. I'm ready to hear this.
Okay. All right. Well, I write sweet, small town, contemporary romance set in fictional towns because, for one, it's easier to do that than make a mistake and have people say, that street that never intersect that street. So I create my own town, which I'm one of those who's guilty of that too. I started writing, actually all my life I've been a reader. Both of my parents read, and there were always books in the house, books on the back porch, stacks of books, double stacked on shelves, and then too deep, too high, which I do with my books in boxes, books in the basement, books in the attic. And I can still remember finding a book in my house, which I think is hilarious now, because I found a book on a dining room table. And it was Frederick Douglass, Freedom Fighter, my very first book that I remember reading on my own. And so I was like, I found a book. So I sat down and I read it. And for years, I would just find books, found them on a dining room table, the piano bench, the living room, and a couch. And I would just read them because I found them. Because I guess my parents were leaving books out for us to read. And so I've always read, and I wanted to be a writer, but got sidetracked, went to law school because I was going to be a lawyer, which I did. And then when I got married and then I had my sons, I decided to stay home. So they were born 19 months apart. So I quit when about 2 weeks before my first son was born. And then I wasn't doing too much reading, wasn't doing any writing because I was trying to be with them. But when they started preschool at 3 years old, I guess they were 3 and 4, I had a couple hours when they were in school. And so first what I would do is just go to the library and read. And I would just picked up a lot of old Harlequin books because you could read them in like a couple hours or so. And then I was like, you know what? I used to want to write. So then I decided, okay, I was going to write a book. And so while they were in class, I would take that 2.5 hours and write, and I wrote some horrible stuff. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing, bad. When I look back at what I wrote, I was like, oh my God, did you really think that was good? The really, really bad stuff I never submitted. So let's get that there. And I wrote them in notebooks, and then, so hopefully they've been recycled and they're living life as paper towels and paper cups and paper plates happily, because they were horrible. Then I started writing, and well, my husband got me a computer. And so I was like, okay, well, he bought you a computer. Now you really committed. So I started writing and I submitted. And, you know, this is back in the day when you would mail it and then you would get your rejection letter like 6 weeks later. And so I would always get the
lucky you got the rejection letter.
Oh yeah. This is back when they would make you put your own postage in. If you wanted, they would either shred it, or if you wanted your manuscript back. So I'd always get my manuscript back because I felt like, well, at least it made it to the publishing house, even if I didn't. So I got a lot of rejections, but I just kept on. And finally I sold, and I was like thrilled. And now I've written, well, I think I've published 9, and I have another one. Well, one's coming out in September, and then my 10th in December.
Really? I don't know why I felt like you had more than that. It just felt like you've had more than that.
No, I have, 9, and then my 10th is going to come out. I had to turn around and count.
You have them all on the wall?
Well, I have, printed out the covers, and then I framed them, and I have those on the wall across from me under the broom we jumped over when we got married. And then I have the cookies there. And then I have the real copies. But because I was going to do it over here, I moved 3 of the books, the covers, and I removed my usual art, and I put the covers there in case people could see them. But generally they're right across from me, and I'm looking at them all the time to remind myself whenever I'm struggling, because you know, it gets to the point I'm like, do I know how to write?
Yes.
And then I look and I go, yes, you do. I know, right?
Especially in the middle. I'm at that place right now, right? In this book that's overdue that I'm trying to finish.
You can do it.
Oh my God, it's so crazy. It's like no matter, and I think to myself, man, you would think, because I feel like A Reunion of Rivals was either my 19th or 20th book. And I'm just like, you would think, you know, at this point it would feel like, okay, I got this. No. Right. It'll feel like I got it sometimes, and then when I'm in the middle of it again, especially when I get to the middle of a book, I'm struggling again, and so whatever. But I wanted to take a moment to say hello to some of the people who have said hello to us. And first of all, Sherri Hollister, who's also an author, says she finally made it live. So, so thank you. And Shannan. Thank you, Shannan. Fortunately here the storm wasn't too bad, but we definitely felt the effects of rain and stuff like that. And then she said about you that you're such a sweetheart. And I love her stories as well.
Thank you, Shannan.
She's a sweetheart, isn't she? She's the sweetest. I love her. Tam Jernigan says you need a list. You need a list for what, Tam? Tell me what you need a list for. And hello, Carolyn.
Carolyn.
If y'all don't follow Carolyn on her Instagram, please do. She is obsessed with Barbies. Number one, she must have like 500 Barbies. I don't know. Tell us how many Barbies you have, Carolyn. She must have 500 Barbies, and she takes them and she recreates romance book covers. So if that's your jam and you are a Barbie girl, definitely follow. Make sure you follow Carolyn Hector Hall. Tell us what
your comics too, though. Her comics too.
Handle is in the comments, Carolyn, so people can follow you. Because I'm just like always tripping. Not only does she do the Barbie reenactments of the cover, she did one of yours, Kathy. She did one of yours, and she's done.
She did.
So she's done one of mine too. But she also does like a comic, like almost like a comic strip with the Barbie. So I'm like, it's the cutest. And thank you, Shannan. I appreciate your confidence. Thank you so much. Hello, Narda and Deidre. Hey. So thank you all so much for taking some time out to hang out with us while we talk about small town romance and we talk about Kathy's book. So I'm going to get into Kathy's book right now. because I love your covers. I love your book. I love your voice. I love this series. So that's a lot of love. I know.
Oh, thank you, Reese.
All of it is true. So first of all, tell everybody what the title of your book is, and then give us a little taste of what the premise is for the book. Yes, and share the cover.
I wish I could make this work right. It's opposite, isn't it?
Keep it more toward the middle. Yeah, that's good. That's a good angle. We can see.
Okay, it's the single mom's second chance, and it tells a story of Roz Martin, who is our heroine, and she's been diagnosed with cancer, ovarian cancer, and she has 3 children, and she's a widow. And Paul Stevens was her high school sweetheart. Then he went away to college, and she felt abandoned, and he thought she should have waited. Anyway, she married his older half brother, who he didn't like at all. And so now she's alone. And I know. And it's so funny because when I first introduced them in Charlotte's book, Winning Charlotte Back, you just write stuff and you're like, oh, okay, this is opportunity to show Charlotte's growth and Charlotte become a good person. I'm like, but yeah, now I'm stuck with that backstory. He's like, oh, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But
well, I've done that before.
So what she does is she needs his help. He's the only person she can turn to. And so she goes to him and she asks him to come to Sweet Briar, which is the small town where she lives, to help her with her children while she undergoes chemo and surgery. And he says yes. And so that's where the book starts.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about more about your heroine. Give us a little bit of the story behind the story on your heroine.
Okay.
So we know her diagnosis and stuff. Tell us a little bit about her.
Okay. Well, Roz was orphaned as a child. When she was 5, her parents were killed in a car accident. And so the only living relative she had was a great aunt. Now, her great aunt had never married and never had kids because she didn't want to be married and she didn't want to have kids. She loved her life. She was enjoying her life. But then she took in Roz because she was family, but she resented her and she resented the change in her lifestyle. So although she took her in, she fed her and clothed her, she didn't really give her a lot of love, which made her more really dependent on Paul. And then when he went away to college and kind of forgot about her because he was a teenager. He was out there living a college life, enjoying his life. Well, she was at home. Her aunt died. Now she was totally like at sea. And so that made it easier for her to look for someone else to help her along because she was only 18 herself. So
yeah.
Wow.
Okay. I'm already totally intrigued and into the story, and I can absolutely see why she felt so abandoned by him leaving. So tell us a little bit about your hero. Yeah. So
okay.
Tell us a little bit about your hero, his backstory.
Okay, so Paul, his father had been married before. And I know this is like what we're not supposed to do as romance writers, but this is what I did. So Paul's dad had a previous wife and he loved her. And she died when his brother was like 3 or 4. And so then he married Paul's mother. And you know how we always have the second, you always have the widower who marries the widow and they all live happily ever after. Well, they kind of did. And Paul's mother loved her stepson and the stepson loved Paul. Loved his stepmother, but he hated Paul. And, it wasn't the old, but of course they weren't previous heroes or heroines. So it was acceptable to do this to them. So Paul grew up and his father preferred the first son, which kind of, gave me the whole, I don't know, the whole Joseph and his stepbrothers in the biblical sense, but he favored him. So that was kind of where I was going with this. He loved the first wife more, even though he still loved Paul's mother, but he had more favoritism for the older son, which had resentment between them the whole time.
Yes.
So Paul grows up. he goes away to college, and he accepted the fact that he was never going to be the favorite son. But then when his brother died, Paul kind of thought, now is the opportunity for him and his father to get close. Didn't happen. Paul's father withdrew into himself. And so part of the reason that Roz can't go to her in-laws is because her father-in-law is finally coming out of his misery and his sorrow. And they go on, this is pre-corona, they go on a 6 months cruise. So they're not around at all. So that just really leaves Paul.
Wow. Okay. And I'm since you brought up the pre-corona.
Yeah, everything, all my books are pre-corona now.
I'm writing stuff all the time, and I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, you can't do that anymore. But I'm definitely not bringing it into the books. I'm just like,
it's not in the book. I'm just pretending like it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm totally, I'm acting like it did not happen. So, and I asked Carolyn earlier to tell us her Instagram. So there it is. It's romancing_Carolyn. And that's Carolyn with a Y. So yeah, I write stuff all the time where I'm like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. Hey, Rhonda, thank you for joining us. So yeah, I think about it all the time. I'm like, yep, can't do that. Can't do that. Would never do that. Oh yes. Okay. So Tam's asking for a list of who writes small town romance in addition to you, Kathy. So that is definitely one of the things that I'm going to bring up later is some of the other names and stuff out there. So we're going to get you, Tam. And also I asked on my Facebook and Twitter profiles, so you'll see a lot of people naming folks there as well. So, and hello, Mama Toni. Thank you for joining us. So, okay. What is it that made you, once you decided you were going to start writing, what is it that made small town romance appeal to you? Or were you always writing that, or have you always written small town, or have you experimented with other genres or subgenres of romance?
Well, when I first started, I grew up in Chicago. And so I was writing books set in Chicago, and those were all rejected. So even one I got a good quote unquote good rejection, but it was still a rejection. So then I kind of stepped back a while. My mom died. I took some time off of writing. And then when I started writing again, I just decided to make up a small town. I don't know if it was necessarily I'm going to write small town romance, but that's what I was reading a lot of too. I was reading a lot of small towns. They were not diverse, but I found that kind of spoke to me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I want to write the books that I read, mm-hmm. but I want the people to be Black like me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when I first started, the first one was How to Steal the Lawman's Heart with Trent and Carmen.
Yes.
I didn't plan like a small town. Like some people make these great maps. I didn't do anything like that. And I just said, okay, well, here they are. And they're going to be in this town of Sweet Briar. And here we are. And I figured if I made it small, mm-hmm. I wanted them to have to keep running into each other. But if you do it big like Chicago, it's like,
yeah,
he lives over here, she lives over there. They never gonna see each other again. But if you put it in Sweet Briar, it's not even 2,000 people there. Yeah, they're gonna keep running into each other, and they're gonna be a part of each other's lives, whether they want to or not. Which that was easier for me to do in a small town. So that
makes a lot of sense in terms of, especially in romance, because like I said, especially in the beginning, you need to find reasons for them to, run into each other. Like I just got through doing the final revisions on my December book, and the heroine says to him at some point that the island is Holly Grove Island, and that basically it should be Dexter Island, because she run into him everywhere. So
that's what you need.
That is the nice thing about small town is there's only so many ice cream stores or whatever, and so yeah, you are bound to run into
Yeah, and that makes it so much easier.
Yeah, like I live in wherever I live in North Carolina, it's considered a small town, but I mean it's like 20,000 people or something, so it's considered a small town. But still, we have like one zip code, one post office. So I run into people I know in the post office all the time.
So, okay, because you're there.
So you can especially understand how that would happen all the time in a really, really, small town or whatever. So that makes a lot of sense as to why small town works so well for a romance. So for the everybody watching, if you could tell us in the comments, what are some of do you read small town romance? First of all, tell us that. And if so, tell us what it is that you enjoy about small town romance, because it's a huge part of the romance genre, small town romance. So you told me as a writer why it appealed to you, but as a reader, why does small town romance appeal to you, Kathy?
Well, again, I like the feel of it, and don't get me wrong, I've read books with set in cities too, and I can't, so I like that. But there's something about the small town where you see the people who everyone seems to know each other, and there's a sense of community. And can I go off on a little tangent a little bit for a second? Okay.
No, girl, go on.
Like I said, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. And in a way, that was like a small town, because we had our houses and we all had front porches, and our moms and dads would sit on the front porch and they talk to each other, and the kids all jumped rope, and we rode our bikes and played dodgeball in the street, and we had a black club, and we had the black club party where everybody moved the cars and blocked it off. And so in a sense, it was a small town in the big city, though. I mean, it was just our one little block. And so that's the sense of community that I like when I read a small town book. And it seems like you have your certain people, you may have your restaurant owner that everybody knows, or maybe your bartender that everybody knows. And there seems to be places that people gather. And I like that. And like with Sweet Briar, we have Mabel's Diner where the people go, or the youth center, which is really big, where the kids go and the parents go. And so I like that, the sense of community that you can build in a small town. Not that you can't do it in the city, but again, you have more forced interaction when you only have the one diner and the one youth center, and I don't think they have a movie theater yet. So it's easily to make people interact more in a sense to build that community. So
I'm going to take a quick question. Nicole Scoggins says, when did the name How to Steal a Lawman's Heart change from or to Chance to Heal, she says?
Yeah, okay. See, now, when I first wrote it, it was How to Steal the Lawman's Heart. And when they did it, it became a free read last year, and I don't know why they changed the cover also, and they put it to A Chance to Heal. I don't know why they did that. That was a Harlequin decision. I didn't have any input because I kind of liked How to Steal the Lawman's Heart, because that was
I did too.
That's how I came up with, and I love the cover. So, but I guess I don't know. Let me just leave it. I don't know. It wasn't my decision.
One thing, when you are published traditionally, you don't get the final say on covers and titles and stuff like that. So, and I will say, sometimes I disagree, and they turn out to be right. So, like the title for Reunion of Rivals, I did not want that. I did not want that title, and people love the title. And it's, at first I didn't think it fit the book, and now I realize it did, and they were smarter than me, because you know how they send you the art fact sheet or whatever, they tell you to submit an art fact sheet or whatever, and they're like, oh, submit 10 possible titles, and so I submitted like 25.
Oh my God, I did like 4.
But yeah, so a lot of times I have to say, even with cover stuff, a lot of times I disagree, and it turns out they're right. So
well, on covers though, Reese, I have to say you get the best covers. Oh my God, I love your covers.
I've been working with the covers for sure. Because I was afraid in the beginning. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna get. Especially when I first started, they hadn't had a lot of Black authors. I think it was just like Brenda Jackson.
Yeah, and Rochelle Allers did a couple desires.
Right. And then so I was like, okay, what am I gonna end up with? So when I saw the Savannah Secrets cover, I was like super
gorgeous, girl. You know,
then. So
your covers are gorgeous. I love your covers.
Thank you. And then Sherri is in a small town for sure.
Okay.
Because it's 450 people.
450 people. That's like a family right there. Just a big family.
Yes. And she said, I read small town romance and suspense. I like the feeling of community. Yes. I think especially now when people are feeling so separated and stuff from, and kind of on the island by themselves, it's nice to read about that sense of community or whatever. So, and TMM Richardson says, I love that each small town has its own culture and there's always a warmth to the storytelling. I like that too. And Deidre says, I like the scenes, activities, and vibes that only slower, close-knit communities and towns have. Yeah, so I'm glad we're getting this feedback from readers on some of the reasons why they like that. Sherri said, your uncle is the mayor, your cousin is the chief of police, and everyone is invested in each other.
Yep, that's it. I like that.
That's true. Absolutely. And yes, I agree, Deidre, that there's so many interesting, relatable details that you can add. That's always fun, the little tidbits you can add as well. Terri Robinson says, I like small town because I like the family connections and reasons for the interactions, but I'm hypercritical if it's North Carolina because I complain about geography liberties.
I take liberties. Okay.
That's funny. That's so funny because it's so funny because both two of my small town series are in North Carolina. So Terri, we're gonna see.
Okay, so
of course I make up my own town, but still because of the location, it could be geographical liberties being taken. But we'll see, Terri. We'll see if you're gonna be mad at me.
I can say because I have to be honest, because when I did Sweet Briar, I just said, it's a couple hours away from Charlotte. Well, then I decided to buy the coast. And then I was like, ooh, by this time I had like a couple of books already published. So now I think people just drive really fast. That's all I can say. And I'm like, okay. And then I start getting out the little YouTube map or whatever one you do. How long to get from Charlotte to here? I'm like, So then I start fudging it,
Yeah, and I'm big on the map thing. I'm gonna tell you, I must have wasted like a week writing this book that I just turned in, negotiating the different stuff about like how does she get home from New York. So I wanted to take the bus from New York to back home, and this new series is set in Outer Banks. My Pleasure Coast series is like coastal North Carolina. But this one is Outer Banks. And so like there's actually a website you can go to and it'll tell you if you're taking the bus, the Greyhound, the train, or whatever, how long it's going to take you and what routes you can take. So I'm actually like studying this.
Okay. That sounds like for two sentences.
Like one sentence, like a single sentence. It was an 18-hour trip. I just wasted a week. To be able to say that. But I didn't want somebody to be like, there's no way there's no bus and whatever. And so
right, and then mark that down to 2 stars.
Yeah, exactly. I marked it down to 2 stars because you can't ride the bus from New York to there that way or whatever. So yeah.
That's why I don't do Chicago, because I don't want somebody going to go, that place don't even exist no more.
Yes. I agree, Carolyn, about Harlequin really haven't stepped up their game with the covers. The covers have been amazing. This new crop of covers, like they just showed Kiana.
Oh my God, was that go? I love that man. I was like, okay.
I know, right? And the woman is the same woman that's on my Secret Air Seduction, my one that
I thought she looked familiar, but I wasn't
she
sure.
She is so cute. I like her. And Mama Toni said her reason for liking small town is the closeness of the community. They come together when something happens to someone. Yes, 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 absolutely. I agree. So, you talked a little bit about how growing up and, the block parties and all that kind of stuff. So was that the inspiration for, even though it was in a city, a major city or whatever, kind of felt like a small community or whatever. Is that kind of where you got some of your inspiration from for your town and your characters, or where did you get the inspiration for your town and characters for your small town romance?
Okay, so I wanted the same feel that I grew up with, because, well, a couple of things. We Chicago is a bad rap. Chicago is a great place to live, but that's an aside. But we grew up great, and a lot of times I think we don't get that same, we don't get to put that story out there that, yeah, we had a good life. My mom and dad married 33 years until he passed. So, we had that, the idyllic childhood. Our block was 2-parent homes, all of them. Everybody had a job, but we don't really see that whenever you, that story's not told. So when I knew I wanted to make small town, and I wanted to tell the way that I grew up and that my friends grew up. So then we have that, and then you have the community in a small town. And I want us to have small town stories too. Just the whole gamut of, experience of the hot ones, the medium ones, the those sex ones like mine, or the sex behind the closed doors, those type. I want everything, but I can only write what I do. So that was part of the inspiration, just to show that we grew up nice too.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you. Because that reminds me of something somebody had said to me one time about a long time ago. And I was at an RWA meeting. Never forget it. We were talking, Pharaoh Sean had come and she had talked about diversity, and she was going to talk about diversity. And so one of the authors there said the reason she didn't read Black literature, she's like, well, it always kind of deals with like struggle and pain, and I'm not usually, for my reading, I'm not really in the mood for that. I'm just and I was just like, wow, like
that's not
my face does things like, even when I try not to, my face just like tells you everything I thought about what you were saying. So I'm gonna try not to go back there right now.
And the rage, I'm feeling the rage for you.
Yeah. So like you said, there's all kinds of different, Black stories out there. It's not just a one size fits all kind of thing. So, Narda said, yeah, she's from Chicago also, and different neighborhoods are like little small towns.
Small towns, yeah.
I like it. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was reading the comment. That's why I was laughing. So that makes sense. Okay. So I like the fact that you wanted to tell our different stories. And so that goes to another question I want to ask watchers and listeners. What is your kind of definition of what small town is? Okay. And I'm asking because of this, because I actually had an editor ask me when I was pitching my current series, my series is coming up later. The editor had asked me, did I consider this series that I was writing as a small town series, or as a contemporary series that just happens to be set in a small town? So I guess my question to readers and listeners is, for small town romance, do you think it has to be like kind of on the sweeter side? Like Kathy writes Closed Door on the sweeter side. Anybody who knows me knows I do not. I set my stuff in my two of my series are set in small towns, but it's not Closed Door at all. So actually this series coming up where, I was like, okay, I have to kind of mind my P's and Q's or whatever. And because this is supposed to be an actual small town series as opposed to, you know, my typical stuff. Because the other thing is with like Desire, that wouldn't be considered small town, because with Desire, it's more about the wealth and all of that. It's supposed to be kind of glamorous and wealth and all that, and that's kind of the focus. So even if like it's a really funny book, they would never call it a romantic comedy or whatever, because that's not their jam. They know their jam, and so they're always going to call it this certain thing. They're going to focus on the desire, and so the sexiness and the wealth and all of that. But so for this series, I was like really like, and let me just say this: I do this with every book I write. I probably write at least one scene or have at least one conversation in there that I'm sure that they're gonna make me take out. And so it's funny when I was just doing this editing of this final book, I was like so surprised at all the stuff they let me keep in there. So it's hot. It's still hot. It's a slow burn, and I've been doing a lot of slow burns of late, but it's hot. So for readers, do you think a small town is only being like kind of closed door, like kind of a Hallmark movie kind of a feel where, you know, the whole story is basically that one kiss at the end is what we was building up to? Or do you see small town as being the whole gamut? You know, that's one of the things I like to know as far as readers' expectations for what small town is. So for you, Kathy, your decision to write Sweet, how did that come about? Is that just always what you've always read, or is it just what you're more comfortable writing? So I know a lot of writers are like, okay, I read hot, but I hate writing love scenes.
Okay. It's what I feel more comfortable writing, because I read hot. Hey. I read that. I read hot books, but I don't write them. And it's not like, I don't think it was ever like a conscious decision that I'm just going to write. At least I don't think it was. It's just the way this story usually comes out. And I really don't even know that I know how. Girl, I be sweating over the kiss. I'm like, come on now. What are some words for the emotions?
Work. You know, it is. It's work. It's like, yeah, it can be tough. It can be really, really tough.
And then I'm like, you know, I said that last book, you know, I would need a different description. Can we have something besides the total single? You know what I mean? It's like, it's hard. And so that's just not my ministry. You know, that's not my gift.
I hear you. You know, 'cause I think all the time, like I think to myself, I would never write, like I would love to write something that could be a Hallmark movie. But at the same time, I don't think I could ever write anything that didn't have an actual love scene on the page. Right. But it would make my job easier, because, you know, the love scenes are hard. You know, they are hard to write. I say that, and then I write a love scene that ended up being like 12 pages. But
they are good. Can I tell you that they're good, Reese?
Thank you.
They are good. They are good.
Thank you. Oh, look! It's the characters doing most of the work. I've been
reading like this. I've been reading like this. Then I grab my water and I'd be like, "Ooh!" Then I say, "Well, let me mark that page and come back to this."
That's so funny. So Mickey Black says, "No, small town does not have to be sweet." And then Rhonda says, I know it's not all sweet, but I kind of expect it to be. Terry says, most small towns I read are sweet, but I would love more hotness. See, I'm right there with you, Terry, on that. And that's why I was like, I kind of want to be that person. So that was the first conversation I had when we wanted to, you know, when I was in negotiations to do this new series, is, you know, is the hotness level, like, hey, how hot can I go? And actually, again, I did not expect most of these scenes to stay in. So I am very happy that they're in, but I didn't think that they were going to stay in. I figured, okay, I figured it was harder for me. It was stifling for me to try to write it and to say to myself, okay, I'm trying to be sweet, or I'm trying to be sweeter than normal. Mentally, that was a burden for me when I was trying to write. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to write the way I would normally write it, hand it off to my editor. If it's too hot, she'll let me know. We'll cut some stuff. That'll be that's how I was going to handle it. And so that's why I was really surprised that it was, a lot of it was able to stay in. So so I want to be the intersection of like small romance, small town romance, but going with a little bit hotter. So because I think it's room for all of it. I think, that's one of the other things I was talking to Kathy before we came on air is, there is more of a push, as everybody knows, for more diverse stories right now. And so that includes small towns. So you see more publishers and stuff that are looking for some genres maybe that you don't see a lot of diversity in. They're trying to make them more diverse. And so they're looking for a diverse small town. But one of my things I say to all editors and publishers out there who are saying, I want to do a diverse small town or whatever. When you say you want a diverse small town, don't basically try to get the author to write a story full of white people who are just, they all act like a town full of white people, but you just want them to be brown, for the sake of saying that you have a diverse story. If you want a diverse story, let it be diverse in terms of, you want to bring the flavor and stuff of whatever culture of people it is that they're being written about. Let that, flavor the story and bring some excitement and some differences to the story, so you have some actual diversity. So like I am very, very pleased with everything that they allow me. There was nothing that they tried to get me to take out of the story in terms of like culturally or even the love scenes. None of that actually did they really try to get me to take out. So I was really, really pleased with that, because I know sometimes you do have publishers or whatever who basically they wanted to read like all the other stuff that's out there, but they just want you to say that people are black and or that they're Latino or Latino. That's not how this works. If you want to truly be diverse, let it be diverse. So that's I'm getting down off my little soapbox right now.
But you're telling the truth, though. You're telling the truth.
So let me ask you, what are some of the challenges that you faced in writing a diverse small town series?
Well,
no,
I don't. Well, the challenges that I had, I guess I didn't have any challenge with the diversity because I was just writing Black people. And since I'm Black, that's not a problem. I just write like me. I guess the hardest thing is when they say diverse. See, to me, diverse doesn't mean person. The true definition of diverse is variety. So I guess the hardest diversity I had is to put in some non-Black people, because I was like, I like it. Okay, everybody don't have to be Black. Let's get the little white girl in there.
Yeah. I too like to see it to be, not all of one or the other thing.
Right. So then I was like, okay, there could be like a white person in here too. So your Italian family or whatever. So that was that. But the hardest trouble really was to make a small town and like to make it to just stick with the cohesion from book to book to book, to remember what I said last book about the town, like, okay, where is this located? And
so you don't have so you don't have a series Bible?
And it's smart.
Somebody, I can't remember who said they came in late to the chat, and so they asked for the name of the series. Kathy's series, if you're asking about Kathy's series, is the Sweet Briar Sweethearts series with special Harlequin special edition line. So if it's her series you're asking about, that's who it is. If you were asking about mine that I was talking about that's coming out in December, it's called the Holly Grove Island series. It's a brand new series that I'm just starting in December with Grand Central, and the first book in that series is going to be called Second Chance on Cypress Lane. So hopefully that answered your question in terms of the series. Mickey Black asked a good question, since we're talking about the challenges of writing a diverse small town series. Mickey asked, is there pressure to discuss racial themes when writing African Americans in small town romance? If you want to answer that first.
Oh, sure, I will. I don't have that pressure. I don't know. Do you mean like from the publisher? Because
That's what I would assume. Yes.
I've never gotten any pressure whatsoever from my editor. I think we have the same editor, by the way.
I know I adore our editor. I really, 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 really.
He's wonderful.
I know. He's the sweetest. I love him.
So I've never gotten any pressure to discuss anything really. He's given me free reign to write whatever I want to write and then go from there. And I don't feel the pressure internally because I just have to. I think there's a lane for everybody, and this is my lane. This is what I can do. I can write sweet small town romance. That's my gift. I think it's a gift, but I can't do something else. I can't be anybody else. So no, I've never been pressured. I don't have it internally. Now, I don't know if readers expect it. If they do, they've never told me that. But so no, I don't feel it.
So I'm glad you said that because that's the thing I was just about to bring up. I've never received pressure from a editor or publisher thus far to go one way or the other in terms of it. I never feel pressure normally to be like, oh, I have to do this or this or the other thing. But I have had a person in a review basically say, oh, what did she say? Oh, I read this book because it was suggested as a book to read, as a diverse book to read. But essentially what the comment boiled down to was basically they thought the character wasn't Black enough. And I'm thinking, first of all, I've been Black for 50 years. So please don't tell me how to be Black. That's the first thing. All right. Second thing is that everybody's experience is different. We are not monolithic. We have all had different experiences. Just like you said, your community was one way. Everybody's experiences have been different. There are room for all of those things. So, and it especially pissed me off because I was that little Black girl who growing up, got called things like Susie Q, Black on the outside, white on the inside, or whatever, because I've always just known what I liked. I've always just been that weird girl who did whatever the hell she wanted to do because I knew what I liked, whether, whatever it was. So, I was that kid who, when we went to the annual classical music concert in grade school or whatever, I was excited because I liked it, and I'm cool with that. So, so that's the one thing. So like I have had readers say things like that, but I never allow that to pressure me. In this book, I will say there were several conversations that my heroine had where she said things that are often said in Black culture that I don't normally put in a book. It wasn't that I purposely was like, oh, I can't put this in a book because I don't want to offend anybody. It wasn't like that. It just never was a time where it felt appropriate. Whereas in this book, there are a couple of instances where I speak very plainly about issues that Black people deal with in the workplace because, a lot of things happen in her workplace or whatever. So that got mentioned there, but I have never had pressure from a publisher or an editor to do that. But yeah. And I remember Sharice Hodges also having a book review. I think it was in the New York Times where basically it was a good review, but it said something like that. Basically like, oh, essentially that, you can't really tell these people are Black. I'm like, I'm just thinking.
Yeah. Well, what were they? Oh, I did get one review though, since we're talking about reviews, and it was kind of weird in the sense it was The Rancher's Return, and the reviewer said that she couldn't tell, that they were Hispanic, and I didn't go into their Hispanic heritage. There was no discussion of, like the music or the language. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, my people are Black. So I guess it never occurred to her that they were Black people. And it was only him on the cover. And I guess maybe you can't tell that he's Black. I have no idea. But she was very disappointed that there wasn't a lot of Hispanic. I'm like, there should be 0 in there since the people are Black. So that was my, I'm like, what are you talking about?
And it's some interesting stuff happens out there. I believe this comment from Shannan was addressed to you when you said, when you were talking earlier, she said, yes, it's a gift and you do it so well.
Oh, thank you.
And she also said, tell us how you really feel, Reese. Yeah. Not only does my face do what it wants to do, sometimes my mouth does too. It's like that sometimes, yeah. And Simply Mine said, I'm so happy to hear this. There are so few black romances. Often when writing black characters, they rely on stereotypes, athletes, southern accent, hate when every woman is described as sassy. I actually would disagree. I think it's a ton of black romances out there. What I think is not enough of an awareness, especially in like mainstream space of those romances. So that's why I'm glad we're talking about them today, especially the small town romances, that there's tons of people out there doing them. It's just that, a lot of people are not aware of them. So I'm glad that we are talking about them, because and like you said, you don't want to just see the same stuff over and over again. There's more than just the athletes and, the same stuff over and over again. So yeah. And Mickey Black asked this question, Kathy, at what point in your career did you realize or discover your lane? It's a good question.
I think it was probably, I don't know when you came in, but I was telling in the beginning, I was saying how I used to write in a notebook and I was writing books and they were really bad. And I think at that time, I was trying to be, when I was writing those, I was writing whoever I had read last, and so I was writing books like the people that I liked and who were selling well, which did not suit me. So finally, I just said, okay, but just write this book. I hadn't intended for it to be, when I did How to Steal the Lawman's Heart, I hadn't intended for it to be a small town romance. It just ended up being a small town romance. And then there were other people whose story I wanted to tell. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll tell his story next. I'll tell hers. And it ended up just being about that small town. So I would say it was after, 4 or 5 years of just stumbling the wrong way, trying to make myself sound like somebody else. And then finally, because I did, I wrote some, when I say whoever I read last, I mean whoever I read last. I was like, oh, okay. Like I read like a really great Tara Taylor Quinn story. So I said, oh, I'll write like her. So I wrote this really nice story.
It is tricky in the beginning. It definitely took me a while to like realize what my brand was and to just settle into it and totally embrace it and be like, okay, that's who I am. I'm good with it. So like last week, Angelina M. Lopez and I were talking, and she was, so I was like, I've just gotten to the point where, and it's not that I'm dismissive of readers, but I want people to have a good experience. I don't want you to read me and be unhappy, because reading a book is a big investment of your time. So, we appreciate you reading, because it is an investment of your time. You could be doing a million other things. There's a million other books on your TBR list. We know that. So I don't want somebody to read my book if I'm not their jam. So like, that's why I say I've learned to embrace who I am. It's always going to be family drama. It's always going to be some career stuff in my books. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like where it's going to be a big cast of secondary characters. So I know who I am. I know what things I like to write about now and what themes are always in my books now. It took me a while to get to the point where I realized it, A, and B, embraced it. And I think once you do that, it's very freeing. And like you said, you stay in your lane. This is who I am. Yeah, maybe you'll try something different at some point, but you know who you are, and you're like, okay, I'm good with this. I can be really good at this. And also Narda said, she said, are we related, Reese? I was the one in my family that organized the outings to live Broadway shows and concerts. Yeah. I was definitely the one who was always like, I loved a little bit of everything. So yeah, I was that person. So, okay. So what are some of the reasons? I'm going to ask you 2 more questions.
Okay.
What do you think is one of the reasons we don't see a whole lot of Black characters featured in small town romance?
I think part of it may be what you were saying earlier about how your books are never perceived as small town romance, even though they may take place in a small town, is because I think we end up getting categorized. And so I was trying to think of who I like, I was thinking of Carolyn Hector. All of her beauty queen books take place in a small town. But are they considered small town books, or are they more considered the beauty queen books, or different people? Remembered earlier, I mentioned Rochelle Allers when she did her Black Stones of Virginia, I think it was. That was with Desire a long time ago. And they're books that people, I think we are writing the books, and they may take place in small towns, but somehow they aren't categorized rather as small town. They're seeming to be categorized as something else.
I agree.
So I think we are writing them. We're just not being considered that.
I agree. And I do, I know that for publishers and editors who consider small town to only be that kind of idyllic lifestyle and, with the closed door or whatever, even if that's your only definition of small town, I still say that there are lots of Black writers out there doing that, that maybe people are not knowing or paying attention to or what have you. So, it's just lots of them. So tell me, you have a list of folks that you just named some of the people who are your recommendations for.
Okay, I can do a recommendation.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask the people who are watching to pop in some of your recommendations of diverse small town series as recommendations to other people. And if you're watching in the replay, please in the comments let us know some of your favorite diverse small town series. Go ahead, Kathy, and give us some more recommendations.
I have to say my favorite author, and when you're talking about people who don't get the recognition, D.L. White. I love her books and her Potter Lake series. I love that. Leslie's Colon Diary. I can't tell you how many times I've read it. I love that book. So and then Carolyn Hector, like I was saying, her beauty queen books take place in, God, I can't remember the place. Carolyn, where's your book take place? Are you still here? And then other people that I'm trying to think. Anne Christopher does books that take place. I want to say they're in New York, but they're small townish. So let me think, who else? Well, who are your lists? Let me
say it again.
I say who's on your list?
So, there's a ton of people that I was thinking. You named a bunch of them. And I think you also just mentioned that Nina Crespo just came out with a new. Oh,
yeah, Nina Crespo.
Just came out with a, right.
Talbridge. So, you said Nina Crespo?
Oh, okay. Thanks. I just checking. I just double checking. And so there's some, like you said, that you wouldn't necessarily think of right away as being a diverse small town. And so Rebecca Weatherspoon, Tracy Livesey, Alicia Rye were named as some folks who've got them. Sierra London and Olivia Gaines. You already mentioned Rochelle Allers. Because I'm looking at my list right now, so I'm looking at my list of suggestions that.
Well, Phyllis Bourne did yes. Oh, and Feud is hilarious. I laughed out loud on the book.
Oh yeah, I just saw her talking about that today because I think it was just mentioned somewhere. Yes, Lacey Baker, which is AC author whom we adore, and Carolyn Hector Hall says her books. Her stories take place in Southwood, Georgia. Yeah.
I love those books, by the way.
Yeah. And Carrie Stevens said, if you're on Twitter, author_DL White is one of the best people to follow too. Yeah. I definitely love having her in my Twitter stream. So yes. So hopefully we'll get lots of more additional suggestions as well here for Small Town. And all of the greats have books that are set in small towns too. Brenda Jackson, Beverly Jenkins. We mentioned Rochelle Allers. And like I said, and then like you said, other series are not categorized that way. My Pleasure Cove series is set in small town, a fictional small town in coastal Carolina. My Bourbon Brothers series is a fictional small town, Magnolia Lake in Tennessee. And I definitely consider them consider both series small town series as well. So and then somebody mentioned also Kiana Alexander's Climax Creek series. So those are some suggestions. Hopefully we will get more popped into the comments as well, the chat rather, as well as the comments for people who are watching in the replay after. So the last thing I want to ask you then is what's coming next for you, Kathy?
Okay, well, next month, as a matter of fact, I have a book in the Montana Mavericks series. It's the Mavericks Baby Arrangement. And this was a multi-author continuity. And the Montana Mavericks are like real popular with special edition readers. And this is my first time participating in the Montana Mavericks.
Yay!
Thank you. I did one other multi-author continuity. It was the Forever Yours series, but that was just for those 6 books. But this is an ongoing, and so I was really excited to do that one. Then I have another Sweet Briar Sweethearts book coming out in December. I just turned in my author approval.
Look at you!
I'm so excited. It's called A Soldier Under Her Tree. And
Nice.
It's Russell Danielson, who is Joni and Lex's. If you read the book, he's Joni and Brandon's brother, who's a soldier, and Hannah Carpenter, who owns the boutique in town. So it's their romance. And I'm excited because it's a Christmas story, and I've wanted to do a Christmas story for so long, and I'm really excited about that. And then I'm supposed to be working on another Sweet Briar Sweethearts book that's going to come out in May. Ooh. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You are really on fire, girl. And look, so this will be 3 releases for you this year, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, it will be.
How many books have you been releasing in a typical year?
Well, see, this is the thing, because I had been doing like 2 to 3. And then last year, when Harlequin closed some lines, then a lot of the super authors, started closing Kamani. So then people came over to special edition. So last year, I think I only had 2 out, and it was in August. So I had a whole year, 12 months go by without a book, where I was like, just wait. Yeah, so it's only 3 books this year. Okay. I'm sorry, I turned around because I was having like a brain freeze. Did I have another book out and I forgot about it? And it's like, no, they're all at the end of the year this year. And then next year I know I'm on a schedule for 2. So I would like to do 3 a year, but it depends on the schedule, which is like out of my control.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's a lot to do in terms of kicking out all those books. It can be stressful, especially if you're trying to do other things. And so yeah, I hear you. And there's definitely been the schedule, you're being spaced out more now, I notice as well. So I think that's on probably a lot of lines now, because it's probably true of Desire as well. So that's great. So that's a lot happening for you just this year that we have to look for, not to mention the book next year. So that's exciting. I saw it because when I was on your website, that's the other thing I want to tell you. If Kathy will actually be visiting my Facebook VIP reader group
Yes,
So if you're not already a member, if you're a reader, you're not already a member of my Facebook VIP Reader Lounge. The link to it is in the description below, I believe. If not, it's in the description of one of my older videos from like last week or whatever. But she's visiting us this weekend on Saturday Eastern Standard Time from 1 to 3 p.m. to party with us. And so, because I frequently have authors come in, Elle Wright was just visiting us actually this past Saturday. And so Kathy will be there next Saturday. So if you want to spend more time with Kathy, make sure that you join my VIP reader group on Facebook. So Kathy, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. We appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I will see you Saturday. It was so much fun, and it was not. I hope we didn't stress you out at all. And so for people who said they would like a list of authors, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of curate a bunch of names from what we've been saying tonight, as well as some of the questions I posted on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. And I will update the description to this video with a long list of authors that write authors of color that write small town romance. So if you come back here in a couple days to this video, you'll be able to see the updated description is going to have all of that in it. So thank you again, Kathy, for joining us. And next, I am actually taking a break for a couple of weeks. So my next person is going to be Cynthia Williams. And that's going to be, I think, on August the 26th, Wednesday to August 26th is the next one, because I have a couple of books that I need to write. So I'm going to take these next 2 weeks off, and then Cynthia Williams will be talking to me in the 2 weeks. And then I'll probably have people every week after that. So don't be alarmed if you don't see me for a couple of weeks. I'll be in my writer's cave trying to catch up with these books that I have to write. So, but thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you for all of your comments and what have you. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a thumbs up and let us know that you enjoyed it. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe if you enjoy reader-centered author discussions. If you have someone that you would love to see me chat with, by all means, tell me in the comments who you'd like to see in future shows here on the chat. So thanks, y'all. Y'all have a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.